What's going on? Welcome to Coils with Kish. Hey. Just kidding. Alright, so I'm going to teach you how I do my Clapton coils. This is by far the easiest method that I've figured out how to do. And there's really only a couple things that you need. Now I do have a couple things that I recommend you pick up because it's going to make this way easier in the long run. But as of right now, really all you need is a drill, your wire, and a pen. Okay. So basically the two most important parts of this, your drill and your pen. Now you might be asking, the hell am I going to use a pen for to make Clapton coils, right? Well, this is basically going to allow you to save your fingers and also going to eliminate most of the risk of any like overlapping or any of that kind of shit. You know, spacing, it's going to end up coming out nice and tight. But basically what you need to do is you need to find a pen, a tube, right? Pull all the shit out of it, the pen, the button, all that shit, right? And you want to have just a pen tube, okay? Now the important part of this, and I don't know if you can particularly see this, but I've cut a slit in the top of this pen tube. I mean, you can see, you know, right here, it goes in. And it really only needs to be, you know, a little bit, maybe like a quarter of an inch at most, but, excuse me, you need to have that slit in there. Okay, so first thing, find yourself a pen, take it apart, and cut a slit. And it needs to go through both sides through the center, you know. Now from there, there's a couple items that I recommend that you get that'll really help make things go even smoother, but you don't necessarily need to have them. I'm going to show you my methodry on how to do it without these extra items, but I will also show you these things so that you know why I like to use them. Now the first thing is this assembly right here, okay? All this is, these are fishing lures, or fishing spinners, or I don't know what the hell they're called, right? But it's basically this piece right here. It's a little clip, and when you turn it around, it rotates freely, okay? Allows it to spin. Now what I've gone and done, I've taken my extra batteries from my drill, put them in this little case, and then I actually take my fishing line and I've secured it to the side of the box, you see. And I'm taking just a couple extra ones because it just makes sure that everything is going to be free spinning and you're not going to have any issues with that. You know, with one of them, you run the risk of it kind of drying the oil out in there or whatever, and it's not going to spin quite as much. And really the ideal is that we want it to be able to spin freely, okay? And effectively what you do is you take your inside wire and you connect it from your drill to here. You know what I mean? And that's just going to allow that thing to spin without twisting or you know, curling up or whatever. Now the other thing that I really highly recommend, these are super cheap on Amazon, but you need to get these wire tamers right here. Okay? Now all that this is a piece of rubber, right, or some sort of cloth material, and then it has this little piece right here where your wire comes up through. Now, the way that this works though is it's not going to let your wire like unspool, but it's also going to be light enough to where you can pull it out pretty easily, you see. Now the reason that I particularly like to do that goes back to the pen tube, right? Now the concept behind this is when you've got, in here, I'll actually, let me do some prep work real quick and I'll show you. So I'm just going to take a piece of wire, you know, whatever. And I'm going to straighten it first. If you're not straightening your wire, you need to be, makes a huge difference. And basically to straighten your wire, just put a little L in each end, secure one side to your drill, and then one side with your pliers. And you're just going to spin it for a sec. Now the important thing to make sure that this comes out straight, you're going to take your clips and go in where you are holding it with your pliers here, and snip it. Just snip that little L that you put in there. But what it's going to do, your wire is going to come out perfectly straight. Way easier to work with in that case. So the reason that we throw the pen tube in here, okay, right? So when you have this put into your drill so that it's free spinning, essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take your wire that's wrapping on the outside and you're actually going to run it through this pen tube, right? And then all you're going to do is you're going to take it and wrap the excess around your actual wire right here, and you're just going to spin it up so that your wire actually ends up sitting inside that tube, and then your outside wire is running through the tube. Now what it's going to do is it's actually just going to use pressure to wrap the next wrap, right? It's not going to overlap, it's not going to underlap, any of that shit. It's just going to add on the next wrap to it. And what that does, saves your fingers, saves you a lot of hassle, a lot of that kind of shit. But when you add the wire tamers into there, right, you take your wire and you run it through your pen tube, you no longer have to do anything to this. Like once it's on the drill and ready to go, all I'm doing is this. I don't even have to hold the rest of the wire because this guy is going to allow the wire to come out as it's needed and wrap around that coil or that you know, inside wire. So I really recommend the wire tamer because it just makes it way easier. Plus it eliminates the risk of, you know, like fucking up your wire, which I've done too many damn times. Now, because I know most likely you don't have these wire tamers, we're gonna do it old school. So I'm gonna take a strip and I'm gonna go about my wingspan, okay? And then what I'll do, I will clip it. And just for reference too, I'm using 30 gauge and 26 gauge, okay? Now what I want to do is take one end, jeez. See, this is why I like wire tamers, so you don't have to deal with all of this shit. Hold on one sec. Alright, well, I got a little bit of a knot in here. It's fine. I'm just going to cut it out because, to be quite honest, I don't need to make a pair of coils right now. I'm just doing it more for the visual effect. So, take one end, and then, where'd my brush go? Right here, you'll take the other end. Jesus fucking Christ, I hate this shit. Alright. You can take your wire, make sure it's straight, and then holding it with pliers on both ends, if you can, you're actually just gonna pull it a little bit. You know what? Fuck that. God damn it. Take your wire. Pull it out. Just press it against the edge here. Just secure it with your finger and give it a little bit of a stretch. You should feel it stretch out, but you'll take your wire and make it nice, straight, easy to deal with. And I will cut my wire. Okay. Now, why the pen tube is important. So from the bottom, I'm going to take my wire, right? And I'm actually going to stream it through the top. I like to leave myself just about like an inch, let's say. You really leave however much you want. And you'll take your outside wire, and whichever way your drill is going to be rolling, you want to make sure that you're wrapping that same way, so it's going to be on line. But I take that little bit of extra and I back wrap it, just so that it's going to lock on to that little tiny L that I made. Right? So now I have this. My two wires are wrapped together, they're staying together. And then what I can do from there is I'll literally just take this pen tube and move it up. Put it right up in there. And you're going to secure it with your drill. Nice and easy. All right, so I have the wire secured in my drill. I'll take this just to show you. So you can see my slit in my pen tube. You can see I've got the wire wrapped there. And I'm basically just going to take that slit and I'm going to put it onto that wire. Just like that. Right? And then, let me see. Might be easier if I do it this way. What you're going to want to do is come to the bottom of the pen tube, and you're just going to want to kind of use your fist to like grab pressure on there. Kind of like this. So you see I'm holding the wire so that this is tight on there. The wire is still flowing freely out of there. Excuse me. And that's going to hold pressure. And then all you got to do from there, just start drilling. And what you'll notice, and I'll stop and show you in a second, is it's just going to start coiling up like it should be. So let's start it. Now sometimes out of the gate, it might not do the most even wrapping, as you can see right there. Hold on. I'm trying to get this to focus, but you can kind of see it's not like a super even wrap. So what I'll do, I'm just going to take the pen tube back, and I'm just going to give it a wrap with my fingers, just to make sure that it's all lining up on itself. And then once you have it looking like it actually should be looking, then you can go and just put that pen tube right back up in there. And you can see like right here, if it'll actually show, you can see that's a tight wrap right there. So once you have that, it should basically be good to go, right? So I'm gonna put this back up in there, and I can watch it, but as I start wrapping, it's just gonna start naturally feeding right in front of itself, right? So like, I've only done just a segment here, but you can already see it's coming out clean as fuck. And that's all because of the pen, right? So basically the whole method just revolves around using this pen, you know? So basically you can just run it until your wire's up, and you're good to go. Now one other trick, I'll show you in just a sec here. Alright, that's good enough. The other thing that I would recommend, don't let your wire run completely out. So like you notice, I stopped it, you know, my wire ends like somewhere in this pen tube, but you want to make sure you have a little bit extra there, because what you're going to do to make sure it stays nice and tight is you go on right in there and just clip that wire, okay? Now you can see my spacing is nice and even. There's no little gaps except for at this starting point. But it's a nice, straight, clean piece of Clapton. Now, the last technique, this is super helpful for when you're actually going to be wrapping your coils, because a lot of the times what happens, you'll go to wrap them, and as you wrap them, they start getting spaced. So all you'll do is you'll go in where the end of that wire is with your pliers, and you got to catch it as close to that wire as possible. You know what I mean? So you can literally see right here, like I'm right between like where it stops and where it starts. And all you're gonna do is take that and bend it a full, 180 degrees, right? And then I'll actually go in and pinch it with my pliers just to make sure that it's actually, you know, how I want it. But effectively, you want to have this right here where it's folded over right where the wire stops, the outside wire. And then I'll generally speaking just go in and, you know, clip it pretty close, but you can see I still got that little edge.
that's basically just going to keep all your wraps nice and tight when you're wrapping so they don't get all spaced out and goofy. Then the last trick that I have, if you really want to get your coils themselves to come out super clean, the best way that you can do that, right, especially with this Clapton wire, just take it, feed it back into the drill, just like so, using that same place that I was using to clip it earlier, right? So now my thing is in there, and by actually using that drill, right, you're not going to be pulling or pushing. So when I actually go to take mine, I can just take my wire and start wrapping it around my screwdriver. That'll allow you to hold tension on both sides really well. I'll show you this as well. Ow! God damn. I just pricked myself. But final result being, when you look at the coil, let's see, it's a nice tight wrap. The spacing is good on the actual Clapton wire itself. It's not like overly spaced or anything like, you know, it is down here at the bottom. It's nice and clean, you know. It's good spacing. Coil is wrapped tight because it helps with this last lead. And that's it, man. That's my whole technique on wrapping Claptons. I'm sorry if this video was a little bit long and convoluted. I just wanted to make sure that I got all my little, you know, tips and tricks in there. But the cool thing about this, man, just using this pen tube alone, right, you can do fused Claptons. So if you want to run 2 wires, run it parallel and then wrap around that, this guy will still be able to support that. The only thing with that is that when you actually do go to start wrapping that wire, you have to make sure, because that wire will have a tendency to like turn on itself. You know, it's not going to be just one round piece, it's 2 wires together. So you just want to make sure that you go and backspin it, you know, using like a pair of pliers or whatever to make sure that wire comes out nice and straight. But beyond that, man, that is it. Thank you for joining me today on our session of Kish coils. Also, it's my beautiful fucking fish tank, man. It's hella chill in the shop today. Slow as balls. Hot vapes, biatch. That's that. Keep it trill.